Right, we need to have a chat about the ladies. Okay, so first of all, look, I want to preface by saying that this video is not going to be the typical content you're used to seeing from me. I'm making this video more because I feel like I've been called to action by some events that have been happening recently in the community. Some content creators that I really love have released content lately about female Space Marines, women being included within Space Marines, and there's been such a heavy amount of backlash in regards to that. Now, I've been a firm supporter of female Space Marines for a long time, and I thought this was kind of something that we were over now, and the only people that were maybe, a bit new to the hobby and didn't really know what's up were still talking about it. But it turns out a bunch of you are still really angry about the possibility of female Space Marines existing. So I want to take some time now to sit here and paint a Space Marine whilst telling you why I think this isn't a problem, why I think that it's a positive thing. I warn you in advance, it's going to get a bit ranty. Okay, firstly, I want to briefly talk about me to help you understand where this rant is coming from. I was born in the mid-80s, moved all over the country as a kid, never really settling for long, until eventually getting to the Midlands, where I lived and grew up from the age of 11 to 21. I'm from a single-parent family. My mum claimed benefits for my entire childhood. I would probably describe my default political position as being heavily left-leaning from centre, but with my main focus being on aligning myself with things that make sense to me. I am, as a former chef and now self-employed creator, someone who is deeply focused on the practical, the pragmatic, and someone who places a lot of stock in kindness and humanity. There are social justice causes that mean a great deal to me, and then there's others I prefer to let people more invested fight for. So why am I choosing to defend female Space Marines? Let's talk about that.
Firstly, the biggest defence for the exclusion of female Space Marines that I've seen is protection of or making sense within Warhammer 40k's vast lore. At a baseline level, we first need to talk about the statement people often cite from a tiny line of text in a single, long-forgotten book. I struggled to find even a picture of it, but essentially it tells us that gene seed stability does not occur when implanted into female subjects. This will typically come up in just about every conversation on the subject of female Marines. So let's unpack why it's bollocks.
Firstly, it's a retcon itself. Retroactive continuity, for those who don't speak geek. In a clipping from an old White Dwarf I found from the 80s, there are two unique female warrior sculpts which are very clearly Space Marines. The urban legend is that, and quite believably, these were discontinued due to not being popular, so we should ask ourselves why they were also written out of lore. Well, honestly, I've scoured the internet many times and I can see absolutely nothing to help me understand why. I totally get discontinuing the minis if they don't sell, but writing them out of the lore seems anomalous to me.
At the very best, it's a shaky as fuck point to use as a linchpin to your argument. Someone made like a toilet decision to edit out a piece of the game's history and you want to now say it's canon? Well, I hope to fuck you're okay with a half Eldar librarian or an Ultramarine with a fucking shuriken catapult, because those are also things from the same time period that have not been retconned out of lore.
Next we need to discuss how it goes against the flavour of the Brotherhood of Warriors vibe to have female Space Marines. This is the other big one that I see knocked about a lot on the internet.
This is idiotic in extremis at even the most superficial level. Whilst the poster boy Ultramarines may well demonstrate a warrior brotherhood feel to their in-lore presentation, as do a number of other chapters of Space Marines, these are still a small fraction of the number of chapters that are out there. Each chapter is usually based, not even loosely might I add, on a particular group from Earth's history.
There are a vast amount of ancient Nordic raiders taking women into battle, often in a higher position of reverence than some of the men. So you want to tell me Space Wars would be damaged in the lore by the inclusion of women?
Let's go back to the year 1260, when Kotal Sagan was born and would later grow up to display such martial prowess that her father would ask her to accompany him to battle against Kublai fucking Khan, one of the most famous Mongolian warriors in history. But you want to tell me why its scars would be damaged by the inclusion of women?
The Blood Angels are a gothic vampire, and The Queen of the Damned is one of the best-selling vampire books ever written. The Black Templars are based on European holy warriors. Have you ever heard of Joan of Arc? You see the connections I am making here. It is absolute piss-weak tomfuckery of the lowest order to even attempt to use protection of the law as a defence here. The simple, unmissable truth is that many chapters would be vastly enriched if their ranks included women.
The last thing I want to go over is the no means no attitude. Essentially the assertion that that's how it is now, so that's how it should stay. A dismissal of the argument for inclusion based on it not being convenient in lore to include women.
So, currently, in lore, the Imperium of Man, even the fucking name is stupid. The Imperium of Man is in a dark spot. Half of it is cut off behind a wall of evil soup. Chaos and aliens are lurking behind every turn, ready to skullfuck the Emperor into golden oblivion. Shit is desperate.
Belisarius Cawl has just oven-baked a fuck-ton of fresh Marines for Bobby G to help him take back the Fringe, and in doing so he literally improved on the Emperor's actual work. He made Space Marines better than the Emperor could. Not only this, but he hasn't been shackled up and chucked into a volcano for it. He's a hero of the Imperium to all, a few High Lords of Terror notwithstanding.
In a world where that character exists, and is currently active, you would have to have absolute smeg for brains to find it even the slightest stretch that he could have worked on making the gene seed stable in female subjects. Why wouldn't he? In lore it's estimated that up to 40% of serving Imperial Guard are women. Big E does not have any old values of gallantry surrounding sending women into the meat grinder, and Bobby G needs soldiers. It literally makes less sense that right now, in lore, there are no female Space Marines.
The next cornerstone in the 3 pillars of fuckery is probably the comparisons people make to reality when excluding female Space Marines. Somewhat predictably, the first thing I'm going to say is that if you want to use reality to validate arguments in your space fantasy super soldier game, well, good luck using cheese to pay for a Ferrari, you fucking ape. We often see comments made to the tune of, well, why would they use women? They're super soldiers, they need to be just as strong and tough as possible, and women are provably less hardy and have lower physical strength. It's just science, man. Well, no, it's not.
Whilst women do indeed usually have a smaller bone and muscle structure, there are certainly small numbers of women who reach the same height and strength as men, and in fact outperform them. Eddie Hall, the superstar UK strongman, was famously destroyed by a female competitor in a YouTube video he made, where they had a strongman contest between them. Space Marines are supposed to be selected from the elite top 1% of physical candidates. While most women wouldn't make their cut, in the realist of real worlds, some would.
On top of this, we have seen GW demonstrate that there are calls for smaller, lighter and faster Marines within the Phobos line. The arm is physically far smaller, meaning the Imperium must acknowledge the need for stealth. It would be better to fulfill this role than a smaller, lighter, faster Space Marine. So yeah, even outside of the 1% argument, women will still have a place.
The third pillar would be Sisters of Battle.
I'm not even going to give Sisters of Battle a long time, because I generally don't think it deserves it. But if you think titty armour and sculpted calves, whilst only displaying emotions ranging from coldness to rage, is a representation of women that women deserve, you're wrong. There are absolutely women who collect Sisters of Battle and love them, but that doesn't change the fact that the sexy angry ladies who channel their rage to kill baddies were designed for men, not women.
It really doesn't hurt anyone to let women be powerful and in control. Look at Amelia Earhart, if history is your jam, or Captain Janeway if you aren't keen on reality. Powerful, stable, capable women are fucking badass.
My last point on this is, not that I consider it one of the 3 pillars of the argument, but it's something that comes up connected very regularly, and that is the SJW Agenda. I want to talk about the SJW Agenda because we often hear a lot of complaints of why should GW have to change things to satisfy the growingly popular SJW Agenda? Well, let me answer that question with a question.
Are you against progress? Because 92 years ago in England, women were given equal voting rights to men. Since then we've had 2 women as Prime Minister. Similarly, in America, the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863 made slavery illegal in America. However, it took until 1964 for laws to start to be put in place to remove racial segregation. Subsequently, a black man was voted into the presidency in 2009.
If we look at progress in medical fields, it was even illegal to dissect bodies at one point, and as such, a great deal of standard medical practice was actually responsible for killing people. My point being that progress is the natural default state of humanity in all things. Eventually, tradition and what we consider normal now has to change for the continued development and success of humanity.
The Sjw Agenda, and I'm doing finger quotes even though you can't see them, as the far right likes to call it, it's just a buzzword. Is used to describe the growing number of voices being lent to issues of progress. When history looks back on humanity in the 21st century, do you want to be the one denying women the vote, or enslaving black people, or using medicine in such a way that it actually kills people? Because these are the comparatives for the issues of our times. Unlike the relative safety that we receive for being white or male or cisgendered or straight, the groups of people asking to be included are literally being offed in record numbers. They're being marginalised. They're being treated like second-class citizens. The credibility of the existence of an SJW agenda in the context it's used is about as on the pulse as the assertion that fucking Antifa is an organisation, like it has a PO box and files a fucking tax return every year. It's absolutely absurd to even think about standing as a barrier to progress. So with that said, try to understand why people defend these issues with such a depth of passion, and why we absolutely will never stop telling you
that female space marines
Female
are
space marines
Marines
are
are
fucking cool.
Female
damn
space
cool.
marines.
That female space marines are fucking cool.
So, yeah, that was tiring to record, I'm not going to lie. It was very hard to sit there and try to rationalise something that feels so obvious to me. But the truth of the situation is that not everybody does get it, and whilst, yes, I was very angry when I was recording that speech, and I still am, I'm pissed off about it. I don't like people being excluded from this hobby, and I don't like the resultant gatekeeping that's happening because of it. It pisses me off. But at the end of the day, I also think that whilst that rant was very angry, and it was, I don't mind admitting that, I wasn't expressing my opinion just in a vacuum and asking you to take it at face value and stop being mean to women. I was trying to give you reasons why historically, why there is precedent, why it matters, and I hope that that came across. And if you are one of those people that has a problem with female Space Marines and you're listening to and watching this video, just take a second and think about it. Think about if you actually want to be counter-progressive in that way. If you don't, try and revise your opinion. But, you know, I'm not going to end this video with the usual sign-off. So, if you want to like it, if you want to share it, if you want to sub, if you want to Patreon, all of that business, fucking great. But that's not what it's about this week. It's just about getting a message across, and a message that really matters to me. So thank you for watching, folks. I'll see you in the next one.